Today on the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast, we're talking about does all music sound the same? A lot of artists are complaining that music is not really evolving the way it should. We're going to talk about that and more. Stay tuned.
Arkatech Beatz.
What's up, everybody? It's Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast. We are your hosts, platinum producers, Arkatech Beatz. I'm Juggernaut.
I am Mike Trauma D.
And together we make the super duper production group, Arkatech Beatz. If it's your first time here, make sure that you are subscribing to the channel. Make sure that you're following and hitting those notification bells. Every week we get together to talk about different things in the music industry to make your life easier to succeed in this thing. And today we came across a video with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg with Stephen A. Smith, and they were talking about just hip hop in general, where music is, how things are not really evolving, and how things aren't getting better. And I want to show y'all guys this clip real quick so that you can kind of see what we're talking about really quickly, and let's get into this. 1 second.
Yeah, I think that right now the artists and producers are using all the same software and all the same technology, which is why all of the music sounds the same. Mm-hmm. I think that all the music that has come out over the last 5, maybe even 10 years are using the same drums, the 808, the rolling 808 drum. All of these artists are using the same exact drum beats, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a little bit of a cheat, in my opinion. So I'm waiting for musicianship to come back, artists that are actually like really playing and not depending on the computers. Mm-hmm. I want to hear what the next level of hip hop is going to be and where it's going to go.
Mike, what's your take on that?
Yeah, there's this. He definitely has a point with that, and I've said that many times, on various podcasts, that music has been somewhat kind of stagnant, and I believe part of the reason is everybody's using like the same packs, or everybody's using the same sounds or using the same type of software. Like, it's such a low entry for producers to get in the game. And I think the conversation is actually much bigger than that. Just the value of music has declined. The value of the producer has seemingly declined because apparently anybody can do it. So it seems. There was a time where, when an artist found out you were a producer, it was a big deal. It was for real. Like, you get that look, like you make beats for real. Come to the studio. It was a big deal because that to be a producer, you really had to put your money up. You really had to go and buy the equipment or have access to equipment. And the equipment was thousands and thousands of dollars. And not the everyday person had access. Now you can download free copies of this and free copies of software, get a free pack, and you're making beats. And then on top of that, now with AI, it's even easier, it's even quicker, So all that to say, the whole value of music, the way it sounds, everybody's somewhat doing the same thing. It definitely has an effect on the sound of the music and where it is right now. So I do agree with him.
It's wild because we was talking about this for maybe 2-3 years, right? Talking about how everything has been sounding the same, and the music business has been doing that because of the just the sharing of packs and information. And like, listen, I'm on both sides of the fence. And you may say, what do you mean? Like, because I've used the software. Right. We've used the software. We've used hardware. We come from the era of hardware. We've used software. Now we're going back to hardware, right? And so it's like it's been a big circle. And it takes a certain level of expertise to go from hardware to software. But the reality of it was that you were chasing the trend. Like, let's just be honest about when we're all using the software-based situation, a lot of us were chasing the trend of the trap music trend. And that was a trend of music that, it had to sound a particular way for it to get placed. You know that, and I know that.
Yeah, I don't want to cheapen it and say just chasing the trend. I think as business people, businessmen,
Yeah,
yeah, the
you go where the
producers,
demand is.
yeah, producers, yes, but if you have a company, you have a business, and you make your livelihood off of this, you have to actually go, where the money is. Um, some people may feel otherwise. Some people may feel no, you stick to your niche only, and you sit in that corner, and that's cool as well. But it really depends on what your goal is and
Yeah,
your business, how your business is set up and what's your business goals, and you know for us, we chose to if the music isn't hitting this way, if this music is not popular, then we're going to create music that is popular. We're going to
yeah,
create music and take what's popular, and we're going to put our own spin to it and put our own what we feel that sound needs to be, and even try to upgrade it and try different things, try to be experimental with it as well, taking maybe some boom bap and merging it with trap and drill and just trying to figure out a whole different kind of sound, you know. But again, I feel that there's too much sharing of the sounds. There was too much collaborations, and it's funny I say that because collaborations are supposed to enhance. Collaborations are supposed to uh, take what I know, take what you know, let's put something together and utilize our resources to make this product better. But the product is not necessarily coming out better with these collaborations. You know, uh, you have producers that were in the same genre or the same type of music collaborating, but the music wasn't really elevating. And a lot of times I'm listening to a record, I'm like, well, why are 10 people on this record? It doesn't sound that incredible to have 10 people a part of this record. Like two people could have did this record, or one person could have did this record for it to sound this. This just sounds regular. How is 10 people collaborating and this is how it sounds? No, it's supposed to be mind blowing. It's supposed to be like, whoa, what was that? How did this like how did you get your drums to sound like that? Like what did you do to
right.
do how's your hi-hats? Like where'd you get that sample from? Like it's not a sample. Like how did y'all play that out? Like music is missing that little mystery. And I remember, you know, hearing records and you're wondering, was that a sample? Or did they play that out? Or like, what is that? I remember just the question mark. And we're missing that also in today because of internet and being so transparent. There's no mystery in how some of these records are being made, you know. And I think it's about the end product. The end product needs to sound good. Like, fuck how it's made. Like, how does the end product sound? Is the end product amazing? If it's not, then it failed, in my opinion.
Look, it looks like again, like it's a resurgence of the OGs coming back in and having to take control back of the genre again because the genre right now is really in a slump. And it looks like a lot of us now have to really jump back into this thing and save it, right? Because we allowed it to kind of implode on itself. And again, it's technology. It's the sharing of information. It's the sharing of sounds. It's not really pushing the envelope, but I also think it's algorithms too, because we're dealing with a situation where if it doesn't sound similar or doesn't tempo match or something like that, or doesn't have the same key or so forth and so on, it doesn't fit an algorithm. And I think what happens is this last 10 years has just been a chase of an algorithm,
Right.
and trying to fit into an algorithm. That's why you don't have the music that pushes the envelope, and you don't have the things that were actually sounding different. Funny joke here. Yesterday we went to see this Pharrell movie, right? And for the Lego with these kids, and just kind of going through his timeline of the music that he did, and us being in the same space at the same time, trying to get on those albums and those things, and trying to work within that same time frame. It's like you see, like you needed a Neptunes, you needed a Timberland, you needed you know what I'm saying? You needed these different things that kept pushing the envelope and kept trying to do something different. You couldn't do what the Neptunes was doing. They were doing something different. You just couldn't do it. You had to go to them for that sound. And I think what happens in this situation is that, imagine everybody doing the same thing at the same time. You just couldn't, you would make the culture couldn't grow. You wouldn't get these moments. You wouldn't have these hit songs. You wouldn't have these things. You wouldn't have those things going on and on. So I think it's very important for us to get more creative. I think that's the underlying theme here. Is like, where is the creativity? It's like, we do understand that we're looking for hacks, and we do understand we're looking to be more productive and save time. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that we have to lose creativity by, using the tools that's supposed to make making music easier and more fun.
But Jug, I think also what affects that is the loss of albums. An album allowed you to say, you know what, I'm going to create a record that's not necessarily the single.
Right.
I'm going to create a record where this artist is having a conversation with himself, or I'm going to create a record where, he's having a bad day and he's in a slump, or the police is messing with him, or some sort of storyline, or like, I'm making an album cut, and that was like key. Like a lot of our records were album cuts, and we concentrated on making those records that was the meat of an album.
Yeah.
That really like allowed the artist to be creative. Like, it wasn't the single. It wasn't necessarily the single. It wasn't necessarily the hit. You had those producers that would give that, but at the end of the day, you wanted to make sure that you contributed to this entire project, because that was important. Yeah, the single was important, but the purpose of the single was to sell the album. And then once you got the album, you needed to be good with this album. This album needed to deliver. So it allowed the artist to be able to channel different things, be able to, I could do the single, but I have the opportunity and the landscape now to rap about something that's with some meaning, with some depth, to be creative. But now that everything was just the algorithm is just so hit, single, you kind of lose out on the album. You lose out on those introspective records that help push the culture. Think about the Nas records, like Rewind, or the I Gave You Power. Some of those records. Those weren't necessarily single hits. Those were those album cuts that really helped define an album. Like, wow, did you hear that record? Those are the records that stood the test of time, and you go back to it and you remember it 20 years later because it was so introspective. It was just so different,
When you say that, right? Because just look at how they did that. So if we're taking, say, Illmatic into consideration, right? You say you have an album cut like New York State of Mind,
mm-hmm.
right? Which, is one of the greater album cuts of that starts that album and makes that album really,
mm-hmm.
what it is, right? It sets the tone on that album. I don't think that artists are taking the time to make the album cuts as significant as they used to. I think before, we knew that you had some songs that stood out to become singles, but I don't think these guys were really taking the craft serious to the point where it's like, okay, we're going to make each album or each song have its own individual value, even though it may not be a single, but have an individual value or replay value. Now, I think, guys are just kind of jumping in and, we made a song, the throwaway songs are the rest of the album. And then I may have 2 or 3 jewels that become the singles, but never really putting the emphasis in making those other songs really significant. And then also trying to make those songs cohesive with the rest of the songs. I think because even though Nas and those albums work with different producers, It's like he had an overall arc that he wanted his album to follow. And he made sure that he got what he needed to get from each producer to make those things intertwine. Right? Because the conversation now is, hey, make one producer do the whole album. And I don't know if that's necessarily better. I think what happens is that the artist has to do a better job of picking songs that match the vision or the theme of the album. And the albums these days just don't have themes. The albums don't have any cohesive messaging. I think the album is just a collection of songs for a lot of these guys, and they're not looking at it like, okay, you know, it's a movie, you know, it's an audio movie. And I think that's what's been missing a lot of times for these things. It's like when you're watching a movie, it has to have the intricacy of a script. Who's the antagonist? What's the antagonist? What's the protagonist? You know, where does the story go? How does the third act end? Like, you know, and I think that has been removed from music, where I think a lot of the music from our era was built on that, was built on the story arc of an album, of where guys started and where guys ended at the end. You know, so I think I'm not saying that everything has to be a movie, but I am saying that it should tell some sort of story that the listener can ride with you from the beginning to the end, whether it be a Get Rich or Die Trying, whether it be an Aquemini, whether it be a Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, whether it be The Chronic, you know what I mean? Whether it be College Dropout. It's like when you name these albums, they have these arcs and they have these beginnings and these endings. And you're just like, wow, what a ride we went on with that.
But most of those albums, if not all of those classic albums, you know, it was about creating the album, and then the label would have to figure out later what's the single.
Yeah.
You know, and then if they didn't have it, then they could go and make that single specifically. But it was more of just, we're going to create a cohesive, dope, hot album. It was about creating the album. And if you remember, you know, to be honest, you know, having a single, you know, on radio was kind of taboo in hip hop. It wasn't the thing that had the quote unquote radio record. That wasn't a thing in hip hop. It was about always staying underground, staying true to the craft, you know, making those records that meant something, that was saying something, having, you know, being a dope MC, being lyrical, you know, saying something that matters, having the dopest beats, you know. It was really just that, you know, and that slowly, when the record company started really making some money and the popularity of hip hop started to grow and it started to reach other areas, and other businesses starting to invest and get involved, saying, hey, this hip hop thing has legs. That's when there was more pressure on the artist to, hey, we need a single, we need this, we need the commercial record so that we can go further and make more money. So in all actuality, commercial greed and company greed has also impacted the way albums are made, to the point where technically right now there aren't really albums. There, as you said before, there's a collection of songs that slap together. They're pretty much playlists for the most part, you know? And I think we really got to get back to creating albums in its entirety. And I'm talking about physical pieces, physical, where you open it up and you have artwork and you have credits and, you know, that feeling of an entire project in your hand, which felt like something, you know. I think this digital thing only just adds to the throwaway value because it's not tangible, it's not in your hand. You know, so when something's not in your hand, you don't really understand the value of it.
You said commercial greed. You know, that stuck out to me. It was like when you said that the labels now and that commercial greed. I think it's hit a fever pitch, right? Where the commercial greed now, you know, you've squeezed everything you can squeeze out of the genre, and now we're at a place now where it's shrinking, right? And, you know, I would say that it's shrinking because of other things are more pressing in the economy, right? So I think when things get tight for people financially, you know, entertainment is sometimes the first things that has to get pulled back on, right?
Right.
So I think that that's what people are feeling, but it's going across the board in entertainment in terms of everything kind of shrinking. And people are blaming streaming. People are blaming different type of things. But again, it's a quality thing for me, and it's been that way for a long time. I think the quality of music was degrading. We've talked about it. We've been saying that for a long time. Dre and them are saying it because people are using the same song, using the same things, using the same sounds, and it wasn't getting better. It just wasn't. The music wasn't getting better. We weren't choosing our artist representation the best way. We were letting the algorithms and letting bots and things like that choose who was popular, and that was a mistake. Right? We should have pushed back on some of these things that should not have been really put to the forefront. A lot of music that really cut through shouldn't have made it through. And it really created this place where we are right now, where everybody's looking around like, oh, where's the good music? It never was good. It's like it was never good music. It was just stuff that you guys popularized through bots and through different kind of algorithm and different things. So now you guys want good music, and what you've done now is you've removed the incentives for people like us to be in this business, because now you've removed some of the financial. You people are not getting paid the way they would get paid. So a lot of us are going into different things and saying, hey, we don't really want to be part of that anymore because you guys don't want to pay for it. But at the same time, it's kind of like by design, in my opinion. Like, they wanted the music to get to this point so they can swoop in and buy it for cheap.
I think that is valid, but to kind of go back a little bit, I think what we should have been doing as a culture is do what pretty much the government does into society, which is we're not going to allow this, because what happens is the general public, if you leave the general public to its devices, they will self implode. Like, the general public technically will turn on itself or turn on each other for their own benefit. To give an example, that's why the government hides things, or that's their say. They hide things because, if you know the truth, or you know this, or you know that, you're liable. It's going to be chaos. When what the culture of hip hop should have done is say, you know what, we need these gatekeepers here, because we're not going to allow the general public to dictate what's popular, because for the most part, they may not know better. You may have too many ignorant people running around saying that this needs to be popular. No, it needs to be the other way around. We need to be the people in gatekeeping situations and putting out music that's going to benefit society, technically. We need to be putting out music that's going to help, that's going to encourage, that's going to uplift, that's going to do all the things that it's supposed to do. We can't have, the inmates running the prison.
Oh, okay. You got to see hear how you sound now, right? Right. You got to, because people are going to look at this and they're going to say, well, that's very elitist of you to say that the people can't make their own decision, and the people can't determine what sounds good, and people can't understand what's good for them and what's not good for them.
The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding.
Look, I'm not even knocking that. Because in my opinion, I agree with you. I've said this shit forever. Like, listen, you cannot have, some of this shit is detrimental to the community. Let's just be honest.
You can't have the streets running wild, Jug.
It is what it is.
You can't just leave it to the people. There got to be some parameters. There got to be some rules. Like if you have this thing running, then anybody's putting out anything, and it's going to impact a vast majority.
And that's the problem. The problem with us, I'm saying that we're the blame. And we are the blame because we are the older statesmen of this business.
Yeah.
We let motherfuckers do whatever the fuck they wanted to do because they were trying to find a way to make a little bit of money. So we took it as, because they know how to make money, that they knew what they was doing. The motherfuckers didn't know what they was doing. They was destroying the culture. We allowed them to destroy the culture. And that's our fault. So I'm gonna look at all the people that's in our generation, our peers, the ones that were making the albums back from the 90s to 2000s, all the executives, all these guys that allow this shit to run amok, it's our fucking fault that this shit is where it is, because we allow people who knew how to monetize social media and took that as knowing how to make music. No, they knew how to profit off of social media. They knew e-commerce. They knew how to monetize their Patreons or whatever else.
They know how to sell shit.
Right. They know how to sell shit. But it wasn't because they were good at making fucking music.
Had nothing to do with it.
It had nothing to do with it. It's two different things. So here we are sitting back. Hey, he making money. He must do something right. No, he was fucking it all up. We weren't looking at the shit from the long haul, right? And saying, hey, how do we protect the fucking culture? How do we protect the minds of the next generation that was coming in?
But Jug, I remember there was a specific time frame in history where it turned into getting a bag. It turned into being a rapper was a hustle. You know, I remember specifically where when artists, and I'm not even going to say who and what genre of music, we could always put that together. But I remember there were certain artists that were saying, no, I don't know anything about hip hop. I don't know anything about the past and that stuff. I'm just trying to get my bag. This is the new hustle. There were artists that was coming into this game and saying that this is a hustle for them. And that's where we went wrong, allowing that. No, this is not a hustle. This is people's lives. This is a generation. This people that worked very hard, studied music, studied other artists, studied the genre, studied everything to get where they are, or to get in a position to open doors for the next generation. And here you come as an artist saying, nah, I don't study that. I don't know anything about lyrics and flows. And nah, I never heard a Biggie record, or I had never heard a Nas record. I don't even know anything about that. I never heard this. No, I'm just here to get my bag. Nah, we shouldn't have allowed these people to get in the game. Bottom line.
That's it.
Like, there needs to be something. There needs to be people that say, you know what? There needs to be gatekeepers that say, no, if you want to enter this genre of music, you got to know something. You gotta be able to take some information, understand it, and then be able to put out something that's not going to be a detriment to our community. And it's unfortunately that we got to go to this extent, but it's only our community that's doing this.
But the thing that's really kind of discouraging to me is we live through this shit, right? And when we say we live through this shit, meaning that we've been around here long enough to remember records like Self-Destruction and Fight the Power and all of that, right? Don't Believe the Hype and all of that. Like, we've been in it this long, right? So why didn't we try to protect the damn genre, bro? Why didn't we try to protect this shit? Like, this is the shit that really bugs me the fuck out.
Hindsight is 2020.
But I'm just saying, like, we've been in it long enough. Like, why no one stepped in 10 years ago, 15 years ago to say, hey, this shit going in the wrong direction. Going in the wrong direction. The shit been going like this shit for the last 20 years.
I'm gonna tell you.
Shit been going in the wrong direction. And like,
people don't want to hurt their dad.
Look, they were making a lot of money, but we still have to find a way to make sure that we can protect the culture to get us a long-term bag. See, what happens with us is that we are too caught up in the short-term bag. We're not thinking about the long-term bag. See, what our adversaries do, and I'm going to say adversaries in opposition do, they think 10, 20, 30 years down the line. That's the difference between them and us. Like, we need everything right now. They don't do that. When these folks destroy a neighborhood for gentrification, that's a 20-year project. You know what I'm saying? They can wait. They can wait for their delayed gratification and their delayed wealth. They can wait for it. See, us, we can't do that. You know what I'm saying? We don't have the strategy to do that. So when we're looking at this music now, and now everybody's complaining, yo, listen, this shit is flat. Look how flat it is.
Yeah,
look how flat. Who's dropping? Like, look at this shit. You see this shit was going on? Like, look at this shit. This shit is absolutely flat, right? But part of it is what I told you before with this Kendrick and Drake shit. I said they were so fast to push out Drake out this motherfucker, not realizing that the whole shit was carried on his back.
Yeah,
Who's dropping now?
Yeah.
Where's the features? Nothing. Crickets. They were so fast to dub the next guy and they're not looking at the long-term implication and the economic implication. Like when these records don't come out or these record labels start to fold or these jobs start to get lost, who getting impacted by it? Us. Like everybody was so quick to turn on the guy, not looking at whose pocket is this gonna hurt? It's only gonna hurt our pocket, it ain't gonna hurt nobody else's pocket. So everybody looked at it and said, oh yeah, I was glazing for such and such and such and such. Like we wasn't glazing for them. We just understand that, listen, this person brings a certain level of income to the marketplace, right? And he was gracious enough to share it in terms of, hey, get a feature. Hey, do this. He was doing these things that other artists would not do. They still don't do it. So now when we're looking around, who's the next person? We looking. Who? Tell me who's the next person. Who's the next hip hop superstar? Shout out to Glorilla. You're doing her thing.
Yeah, she dope.
You know? Who's the next one? Who?
I mean, you got a lot of dope stuff coming up, but yeah.
Come on, man. And that's the thing, man. This is what I'm looking at, and this is what the huge implication has been is we're watching this shit self-implode because we are too fast, too fickle to say, hey, it should go to this guy. It should go to this guy. Listen, some of these folks aren't built to carry this culture like that. Like they can talk it, but they're not built to carry it that way. You know what I'm saying? Some people don't want anything to do with the beef, right? You already know who that situation was. They didn't want anything to do with that for their own personal reasons. But, at the same time, we got to fill the musical void, right? If you're not going to get on that level, hit us with some dope stuff to fill the musical void. But right now, there's a fucking void. There's nothing. There's like, what am I fucking playing right now?
Where's the Kendrick album?
Come on, man. We already knew what time it was with that shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? And listen, I want people to be clear too.
Shout out to Benny Butcher and 36 Special. They got some hot shit right there.
Listen, you know what I'm saying? But we understand that is a certain lane. That's going to be a certain lane, and that's a niche market. You know what I mean? You still you need that, right? But you're going to need your guys that keep the money coming into the genre. Those are the Drakes. Those are the people that keep the money coming into the genre. They look at his success and they say, hey, the genre can make money. So they keep putting money into it. But once you pull him out of there, people are like, where's the money at? There ain't no money in the genre. I'll be pulling out. That's what you see everybody pulling out of this shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like this is the shit that I can't understand. So like when you say, what's his name's album? Come on, that shit should have been out, right? To follow the biggest song of the summer.
The biggest song in a minute.
But that's what they did. But that's what academics and them been screaming from the mountaintops. You know what I'm saying? Is that this is the person that's not for that. They don't do that. You know what I'm saying? They talk about the other guy to get a little heat going, to get a little traction, but they're not really about putting out all that consistent music and the grind of doing that. They're not into doing that. They're not doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not into that. You know what I'm saying? And not saying that anything is wrong with their music, but at the same time, I can imagine the amount of pressure on him now to follow up that fucking record.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, you and I have been in this shit long enough to know you got to follow up that fucking record. That record that already really wasn't your thing, because if you think about the sound of his body of work, right? His body of work don't sound like that.
Right.
Now your biggest hit sound like something left field that you don't really do, right? Mm-hmm. And it's about somebody who you can't no longer really talk about no more because it's over with. Where do you go? You paint yourself in a fucking corner. And that's what you're seeing right now. So now what we're praying for is that the Super Bowl is everything that it needs to be. Because if the Super Bowl performance, listen, if the Super Bowl performance ain't what it's supposed to be, and the album that's after that has to be phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. The amount of pressure now on that shit.
Sheesh.
Come on. You know what I'm saying? And really what's supposed to be happening if we're his team, we're supposed to be testing the market right now, man.
Yep.
This is not a time not to drop nothing.
He's supposed to be dropping like a 3-4 song Super Bowl pack.
I'm telling you. He's supposed to be testing this market out to see what the temperature is, to make sure he's going in the right direction. Just, you know what I'm saying? To start doing those things like how Kanye used to do, is that people preview the album in live stadiums and then let folks kind of get that feel and say, okay, and then we're gonna change the album after these pre-shows. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're gonna preview the album in these big stadiums and start seeing, you know, what work and what don't work. You know, it's like you got to do this market research now, bro, because now we held you to this fucking standard and you didn't give us no music, which we knew you was gonna do anyway.
Yeah, we about to go in November in a minute. Nothing.
We knew that shit, man. We knew that shit, and I listen, man. Motherfucker could rap, man. I want them to understand. If you ever see this shit, yo, listen, you one of the dopest lyricists. Like, don't get it fucked up. Don't take what I'm saying like that. What I'm saying sometimes, and I'm saying it from not just a producer standpoint, as a fan standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint for us as a culture that are trying to make our livings through this business. And there are ways that we are not thinking about what we're doing and how it impacts everything. You know what I'm saying? It's like our music impacts the fucking Black culture. Like, we have to be honest about this shit. Mm-hmm. Like, we've been in it long enough to see that it impacts that. Like, come on, like it changes popular opinion. Like, it does. It influences popular opinion. So
yeah,
you know, we can't sit here and act like it's not powerful, and we're not respecting how powerful this shit is. And I think that's really where I have a lot of beef with a lot of these guys. Like, yo, you guys are turning on this guy and you're turning on this guy, not realizing, like, you know, you've never seen a guy in that position help so many fucking people. Ever.
So when you have situations like that happening, you know, when you have producers not pushing out the music that they need to push out and inspiring, when people sound like copycats, you're removing artists from the table. When you have all of these things happening, like, no wonder, like, look at the space we're in. I mean, it's all destructive. It's like all of these things are not helping, you know. And, you know, back to what Dr. Dre was saying, as far as, you know, one producer, I think that's, you know, I think that's helpful. But on the other side, when you have someone like Nas who had an Illmatic album that had multiple producers, I just think that your producer or your production team just needs to be in the same space as the artist. You know, I think they need to come together and really just say, hey, this is the direction we're going. I'm going to need this. This is the vibe I'm looking at. And then it's off to the races, you know, and, you know, let the producer come with something that doesn't necessarily sound like what's out there, but can inspire the artist. You know, there's plenty of times we walked into a studio, and, you know, specifically Nas, and we gave him a record, and he crafts something on the spot. And, you know, I think also there's a lot of artists trying to do what Jay-Z does, you know, when, you know, trying to come off the head. That's not for you. Like, you shouldn't be rapping the first thing that comes to your head for most of y'all. Yeah, like, why would you put yourself underneath those type of restraints? Like, why would you do that to yourself as an artist? Take the time out and listen to the beat and write shit down. Go back, change it, fix a word, check the flow, write it down. Look at it a couple times, repeat it, fix this, fix that, and then when you're ready, go in the booth. Why do you feel you need to come off the top of your head in a booth for an album that we're paying for?
It's amazing, man, when I see that sometimes, when they say, oh, because Jay did it, I have to do it.
No, you don't.
Like, come on, bro. Like, this let's be honest, man. Like, you know, like, not everybody's on that type of time. And at the same time, it's like, be honest with yourself and how you're gonna get your best workout. You know, and I think it's just lazy, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, we're trying to do something that someone else do, and it don't really work, man. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's too much of that shit. It just don't really work. And remember those days, Mike, when we used to be working on an album, and then the next producer would be in the room, and we would be in the room with the next producer, or the next guy would come in, and we would we would be able to kind of share that energy. And I think that's how you got the cohesion. It's like, hey, we're not all working in isolation. Like, we're hearing what this guy did, we're hearing what this guy did, and then we're able to either, go back, craft something better,
Yeah.
we
We would inspire each other. Like, we would go in and, you'll see Alchemist,
yep,
and he'll play something, and we'd be like, okay, that shit hard. All right. And then, Rock Wilder may come in behind him after that, or, like, and it'd be like a community, and you was like, wow, that's dope. That's dope. And we'll dap each other and, show love to each other, and like, yo, that's fire. How'd you get your sniz the crack like that? And we share some information, but you had to go home and come with some shit because you didn't want to be that person that was not measuring up to what your peers was. Like, that was important. When No ID was cracking out those beats, like, and we heard some of that stuff, we was just like, oh no. We went back to the lab. We were going back like, nah, we not going to bed tonight, yo. We not sleeping tonight. We gonna go and try and find the craziest samples, and we gonna just do some things to make those drums hit, to make you feel a certain way. It was like a real energy. You was really determined to, like, yo, I'm not gonna come back to the studio and play my joint, and my joint gonna be just mediocre, or it's just gonna be my joint gonna stand out. And it was a pride in that. There was a pride in that, and a love for it.
Yeah.
That you felt proud that, yo, we came through and we cracked some heads. Like, we got one off. You know what I'm saying? It's not that vibe, and we need that vibe again. It's still that vibe with some of the vintage hip hop boom bap producers, but I think on a larger scale, it just needs to be like that. All producers, all artists, in creating music, creating art. Like, your records need to be banging, be dope. You need to be saying something. Your album artwork need to be wow, like, whoa, this is dope. Like, nobody's trying to make shit that you really like wow. Nobody's trying to wow anybody. And you got consumers spending the money. You got consumers that subscribing and this, that, and the third. As an artist, and some of these artists got a lot of resources. You're supposed to have the best beats, the best sounds that we've never heard.
Right.
You've traveled all over the world on tour. You're supposed to be picking things that up from that sounds that we didn't know was even a sound. You're supposed to be hearing beats like what is this?
Listen, I'm just like, I'm at a point where I'm just looking at everything and I'm like, okay, it's coming back full circle. I never would have thought that it would have taken this long to come back full circle. Yeah. Right? Like, now we're watching, like, the tempos change. Everything is going slower, and it's like now people want to listen to lyrics. Now people want to hear people really rap. And it's like, what happened to y'all? I guess now the drugs have worn off, right? Because we went through
enough people died.
Enough people died, and enough people on drugs. Because remember, our generation sold the drugs. The generation after that used the drugs. Now we're coming back to the folks, saying, hey, crack is whack now. Let's not use that anymore. And now we're coming back to more conscious sounds. And there has to be a switch. I think the switch is coming. I think more of us are getting more creative. And I think these conversations need to be had. Like, we have to have these conversations. We have to talk about, protecting the culture, and I think that's what happens as older statesmen in this game. We have to protect the shit. Like, come on. Why since when every other industry protects its industry?
And we got to show support to and I put a post on this the other day. We got to support the records we
That we
really
love.
that we love, and the people that, even the artists that we grew up loving, like their music, we gotta support them. And the LL Cool J, we gotta support them. MC Light, we gotta support that. We the whole Griselda team. The Conways, the Bennies, the 36 Special, like all of
West
that.
Side Gun.
All of those are type of records that you enjoy, that you love. That's that John, like, support those records. The other nonsense is winning because the inmates are supporting it. Everyone else is supporting it. The people who technically shouldn't have the power are supporting it, and is overshadowing the records that you enjoy. Shout out to Nas, that he keeps, who continues to put out music at a great caliber and good quality. It'd be interesting to see if Jay is going to put out an album and what that would sound like.
I think he's done with rap, bro.
It'd be interesting to see what this Snoop and Dr. Dre album would sound like. I would love Outkast to come back out and put out an album and see what that sounds like. I would love T.I. to come out and put out an album and see what that sounds like. There's a lot of artists. Rick Ross needs to come out and put out something solid, and really lyrical, because he picks great beats. So,
when you say that these guys need to come back out, they need to go direct.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So they can now evade the public pressure of sales data.
Right.
And I think that is where
it's another thing.
I think that is where the art is being destroyed, is because we have bought into the streaming and the label design, which doesn't work for us. Mm-hmm. Like, if you really think about the whole streaming apparatus, and this is going a little bit off topic, but hey, if I'm a label and I can put my album, if I can put my artist on the playlist, on the editorial playlist, and I can control the algorithm from the outside, then it's a win for me, right? As a label owner, right? Mm-hmm. So for these guys now who are out of those type of deals, who have been duped into believing, you can go independent because you can get your stuff on the streaming platforms, that it's the same thing. It's not the same thing, right? You're not going to get the support. They may not even allow you to get certain numbers of streams because they're going to deem it a streaming fraud, right? Like, it's all a big game. So what these guys got to do, and they got to do it like how Glorilla and them did it just now, which is, hey, go direct consumer.
Yeah.
Just go direct consumer. Put your art out. Now you're not under any pressure for any sales.
Yeah.
And you can bundle. You can sell it with T-shirts, sweatshirts, vinyl, whatever it's going to take, and you're not under no pressure.
Yeah.
And then we get the art that we want.
Right.
And we're going to get the best music this way. If you're going to go through the regular apparatus, everything that you guys drop is going to be deemed as some sort of commercial failure. Well, you and I know that's not necessarily true, right? Because we don't have any real barometers. Streaming is not a real barometer of success anymore. It's not. Doesn't mean that a person isn't relevant because they're not streaming as much as this person or that person. That's not a situation. But what you have to do is just, find this direct-to-consumer lane. I think that is where the legacy artists are going to basically find their footing. And I think as we go into past the selection cycle, and as we get into if we go into a new presidential direction, then the economy may change. If the economy doesn't change, then that's a whole other monster.
Yeah. Unfortunately, numbers do lie.
Yo.
And we got caught up in this money numbers don't lie thing, but sorry, numbers do lie. And we've been duped.
That's the real. They use these numbers against us, These numbers ain't the real numbers, man. And even when they are real numbers, you have to still say it can't be real numbers. There's no way for you to validate any of this shit anymore.
Yeah, and then there's stories behind the numbers. That's why they say you can't always look at your credit score for the full understanding of your credit history. You need to actually look at what's on your credit report. It's the same way. Like, the numbers don't always give you a full idea of what is going on with your stuff. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, even if you are getting the right numbers, which sometimes you are not, because you don't have control over the data. So when you don't have control over the data and you're relying on a third party to give you the data and expecting them to pay you on the data, the numbers could be anything, and it's a tricky game. It's a tricky game. The record labels are in on it. The auditing systems is fugazi. I mean,
bruh, that's a whole nother podcast about how crazy these numbers are. The numbers that you rely on from the label and all these numbers that are, like we say, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Man, that is a crock of bullshit. It's depending on who's doing the counting. It's like,
because people lie all the time.
The word. Like, whoever's doing the counting, that's going to determine if the numbers lie or not, bro. They said that, it's not about who casts the votes, it's about who counts them, And at the end of the day, it's real shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like this right here that we're seeing, we're seeing an industry that's being imploded by streaming. Like, right now, that's what the pause is that artists are looking at these streaming numbers and they're like, this ain't working for us. At one minute they was chasing it, but now a lot of artists are waking up and saying, this ain't really working for us no more. So now a lot of people are pulling back and they're trying to figure out now, how can I do it? But we've been telling them for the last 2 years, if you've been watching us consistently, go direct. You got to have your own website. You can't create your career on Instagram. You got to have your own place. Like, these are promotional these are marketing tools. YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram. These are marketing arms. These are not places where you can run your fucking business. Your business has to be run from a central hub somewhere else on the internet. Yeah, and you have to have products to sell. You can't just sell music anymore.
You got to have a storefront.
There it is.
You got to have a storefront. Like you got to think, you really got to tell yourself that these streaming services are just radio stations. Okay.
Yep.
And then you got to say, okay, now that they heard this song on the quote unquote radio, where do they go to buy the physical product? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they got to go someplace to buy the product. Where do you buy the product?
But you see how you broke that down? That's the easiest and simplified way for people to understand it. Yeah. Is that where do we go to buy the product? The record used to be the product. It's not really the product as it used to be anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because when we say the record used to be the product, we used to have a vinyl or a tape or a CD or an 8-track, whatever that is. That's the product, right? The music was all in one.
But then you had a store. You had a place to actually get it from.
Yeah.
But now there are where do you get that from? You have to create it as an artist. You have to create your own storefront. Yeah. See, the problem is that we're relying on streaming to replace stores. And you got to put in context that, no, the streaming really, that's a radio. That's an on-demand radio.
Yeah.
But you still need a store to sell your merchandise, to sell the physical product, to sell autographed copies of vinyl, T-shirts, tickets, anything having to do with it. You need a store. You need a place to walk in or to get the stuff, and we've been duped to thinking that retail stores has converted into Spotify. No, that's where we got it wrong.
Yeah, and we're taking too long to figure it the fuck out. And I think that's really the other issue. It's like, you guys are taking way too long to figure this out, man. That YouTube isn't the business. YouTube is the marketing arm of your business. It's not the business. You know what I mean? Like you got to understand, you have to have products to sell. So we'll leave it on that note. Music is sounding the same because motherfuckers ain't doing what they're supposed to do, right? And what we're hoping for is that music will change and music will sound better as we get into the new year, because I think more people now are realizing that, hey, we got to get more creative and we got to start really digging to make this shit sound different. Like, you know what I mean? Like it can't all sound the same anymore.
Right.
It doesn't work. And if you're a rapper out here trying to get in now, you got to learn how to rap. Before rappers used to be probably, considered the most articulate group of folks. Not so much anymore. Like, how does this guy even make a record? This guy can't talk. It's like this guy hums his way through the record. Like, how does he do that? Yeah. Folks, this is Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast. Make sure you're checking us out at arkatechbeats.com. Make sure that you're picking up our ebooks on the music business. Those are available at arkatechbeats.com. If you need to understand music publishing, copyright, forming your own LLC, song registration, and all those type of things, those things are available on our website. Also, join our newsletter. We have over 5,000 people that are on currently as part of our newsletter. Make sure you're subscribing to that. We teach folks how to learn this music business. Mm-hmm. Any parting words on this, Mike?
I just think every artist that's independent artist, major artist, whoever, if you're in this game or getting in this game, you got to have a conversation with yourself, and you got to ask yourself, how are you contributing to this game, and are you pushing it forward? Are you giving something different, or do you sound like everybody else? And I think we got to start with those conversations.
I agree with that, man. 100%, man. Too much. Like, I understand copycats and imitation is the greatest form of flattery and that type of thing. But at the same time, it's like we have to try to innovate something better. Like that's been the issue. It's like, it hasn't gotten better. I can just remember times where successions of albums just got better and better and better. And it was just like, what's really going on?
I just need, if I turn on any type of streaming, radio, anything, I should be able to hear an artist's voice and know who that is, or get an idea.
That's real.
It shouldn't sound like the person that came on before him. And I should be able to differentiate, like, whether spending time on your tone or how you want to sound or whatever. Like, spending time on these things that's going to help make you different. Like, Jay-Z doesn't sound like Jeezy. Jeezy doesn't sound like T.I. T.I. doesn't sound like Big Boy. Big Boy doesn't sound like Nas. Nas doesn't sound like Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill doesn't sound like MC Lyte. Like when they get on record, you're like, and that's one of the things that I like about Glorilla. She don't sound like nobody. So I think that's one of the things that help her stand out. Like, she don't sound like nobody. And you gotta make sure that you don't sound like nobody, man. Like, I know people be like, well, if you sound a certain way, you sound a certain way. Yeah, you gotta build on that.
Yeah. But even look at her, I know we were trying to get out of here, but she, I was concerned in the beginning. I'm like, how is she gonna, replicate this success on this first record? And she's found a lane. And she's found a lane, and it doesn't sound like anybody else. And the music, the music bed that it's on doesn't sound like anybody else. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's doing its thing. And I'm just like, okay, like, this is why it's winning. It's winning because it's fucking original. Yeah. Sorry.
and then she has a business situation that mirrors that. Going independent, going straight to consumer. So all of that helps as well. So, hats off to Glorilla and her team that decided to
for really getting it done. You know what I mean? And
you don't need to sell a lot of records. You just need to have a certain amount, and you could sustain that, and you could still be true to yourself and true to the art of what you're doing without the added pressure. So,
everybody out there, make sure that you're commenting, and subscribing. And until next time, peace.
Peace.
Everybody be safe.